Hello everyone and welcome back. We are in session 2 of my professional speaking clinic. I have to remember I'm used to doing these videos, so normally I say, hello, my name is Keith Kochner, but by now you know that already, so I can leave that part out and we can jump right into session 2 of the speaking clinic. Now I'm going to jump into this topic quite readily today because I have a lot to share on it, and I want to set you up from the very beginning. I don't even know for sure how much we will get through in today's session. But whatever we don't finish, we will finish again the following week, because every Monday you get the newest part and the newest session of this speaking clinic. So let me just back up a little bit. Session 2 is called the 5 layers of speaking. And I want to give you a little history on it so you know where this came from and how I developed it, because it's been extremely valuable to me, and it's been extremely valuable to the clients I've used it with over my many years of speaking and teaching other people to speak. This curriculum, when I first developed myself as a speaker, and this is something I would absolutely encourage you to do at some level as well, depending on where your dedication is, depending on where your passion is, and really, how good do you really want to be. You know, when I started speaking years ago, almost 2 decades ago, I knew I wanted to be not just a good speaker, but I wanted to be one of the best. And so one of the things I did, I got into it a few years, and I've been speaking for a few years, but I really decided that I just wanted to be another good speaker, even a great speaker. I literally wanted to be one of the best. As I shared within session 1, I said, you know, I wanted to be the Michael Jordan of the speaking industry. So one of the things that I did, I said, Keith, you've got to figure out what you like. You've got to figure out what you're about, what your style is, what you think will work best with audiences, what you think the audiences will like. And one of the best ways to figure that out, Keith, is go back and remember when you sat in the audience. What was it that the speakers that you heard speak, what was it that they shared? How did they act? How did they talk? How did they make you feel? Beyond even just the content, which we're going to talk about in just a few moments, but even beyond just the content, how did they make me feel as a communicator, as a presenter, as a pastor, as a speaker, as a salesperson? All these different venues, and I'm just saying all those so I can help maybe jog your memory of all the different times where you really have sat and listened to somebody, or you have been in a conversation where you were on the hearing end of the conversation, so you can begin to take inventory in the same kind of way that I did. Now, I not only thought back and remembered when I was in those types of audiences and what I liked and what I didn't like and so on and so forth, but I also decided this. I decided I was going to pick a handful of speakers, and I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but it was somewhere between 30 to 50 different speakers. And I thought, you know what? If this is valuable for me to remember back when I sat in audiences, that's good, but that still wasn't as fresh as I could be. I said, you know what? I want to collect a handful of all different kinds of speakers, salespeople, presenters, educators, pastors, ministry background, leadership trainers, personal growth trainers, you know, all the different corporate speakers, keynote speakers, all the different things I could think of. And some of them are referred to me, some of them are recommended to me, some of them I just found and looked at. But what I want to do is this. I wanted to spend time watching them. So all these speakers and presenters that I got, I watched them. I either got there, at that time it was either, you know, a VHS or a DVD or a CD or some type of whatever media they had. That's what I got. And I gathered them on. And then what I would do is I would put them in whatever player I was using at the time, whether it be my TV or my computer or whatever media device I had, and I would do several things. I would just turn them on and watch them because I really wanted to see how I felt. So as I began to want to grow myself, I began to look at really deeper, how were people making me feel when they communicated to me, and did I like it? Did they bother me? Did they annoy me? Did they talk too fast, too slow, too loud, too annoying, whatever it may be? And I really began to comb through all these different speakers and make a list of the things that I liked, make a list of the things I thought worked really well, make a list of things that I didn't like, that I didn't think worked well, and then I even started to make a list of things that I thought one person that was doing really well, if this other person had done what they did, they would be even better. You know, I started just kind of cross-referencing all these different things people were doing, and then I started applying to myself. So here's how I did it. I would watch the video and listen to it. So I would just turn it on, just like you would turn on a normal video, right? So I'd watch it and I would listen, I would just interact with it, and I would just be aware of what was going on in me as they spoke, right? So then what I would do is I would rewind it or go back to the beginning, and I would mute the sound and I would just watch. And so rather than hearing them, now I was just watching them. So I wanted to see, how did I feel when I was just watching them but I wasn't hearing them? Was there a difference? Did they make me feel better? Did they make me feel worse? Did they make me feel the same as when I both watched and heard them? And I just took some notes. I just took some Sometimes it was written notes, sometimes it was mental notes, and I just took inventory of what was happening. And then, of course, you may have guessed it by now, I would rewind it again, and then I would cover up the screen, and then I would just listen to the sound. So I wouldn't watch any longer, I was just listening. So then all I heard was their voice, and some of the things we're going to talk about here in the 5 layers of speaking. And I began to do the same thing, just cross-referencing what I liked, what I didn't like, what worked, how I felt, to all 3 of them. So there was 3 different ways that I could watch all these speakers. I could watch and listen, then I would just watch, and then I would just listen. And I took notes on what I felt like it was doing for me or not doing for me. So to make a long story short, I collected all these thoughts, all the ideas, all these styles and everything else, and I began to pick and choose the things that I felt, for me, would make me a phenomenal communicator, a phenomenal connector, a great speaker. And then I began to use and practice the things that I saw on myself, right? So I took inventory. Some of them I liked for myself, some of them I didn't. But I'm trying to show you how I developed this 5-layer speaking so you understand it's not something that I just wrote down in my office 5 minutes ago and now I'm regurgitating to you. This is something that took me years to create. I studied these speakers for just a pinch over 2 years. There was a 2-year period where I really used a lot of my free time to do this. I use those things, I use that time to role play with what I learned, and I'm going to pause here for just a second. As you're walking through this clinic, as you're learning these different things, role playing, and you'll probably hear me say this more than once throughout this clinic, role playing is an absolute must. I spoke to nobody for a long time. I was speaking to myself in the mirror. I was speaking when there was no live audience. Sometimes I would set up a camera in front of me and teach and speak and then go back and watch it back. Say, Keith, that sounds really over the top. Well, not really. It's what helped me get to the level of my career that I am today. If you talk to any professional athlete, they record their games. They go back and watch the plays. They go back and watch their performance so they can critique themselves and see what they could do more, better, different the next time. And so I this whole season of where I practice and I role play. So role playing is an absolute must, but we'll come back to it again later. But I spent time role playing. And to make a long story short, I really found what I figured out for myself would be a great way to communicate. And then I began to break it down into a curriculum. Now I did that years later as I began to speak and I began to kind of get my own name out there. My reputation began to build. Of course, I had other people coming up to me and say, you know what, I would like to speak. I would like to do what you do. And so it started off small and I started working with other people and just sharing my ideas and my thoughts. But then all of a sudden, I realized if I'm really going to be able to help people in a way that can be maintained and sustained over a long period of time, I've got to develop something, a system, a structure that they can really begin to understand what it is that I'm sharing with them in a succinct way. Everybody was going to give me 2 years to role play with them and show them all the different things I did and take them through that same process. So I developed this 5 layers of speaking curriculum to then turn around and help other people learn how to speak and communicate. And as I got more and more proficient at my speaking and I got better and better and I got more and more attention, more and more people wanted me to help them. As I helped more and more people, then other businesses and corporations wanted me to help them and their presenters and their keynoters and their speakers. And I use this curriculum that I want to share with you here today and begin sharing with you today to really help people move their speaking careers or their speaking objectives forward. So I thought it would just be of value to you to show you the history a little bit of where this 5 layers of speaking came from. And you're going to see the 5 layers that I've picked up on. I took them from both my own experience, those years of learning, and still what I learned today to really put something together to show you that speaking might be just a bit more than you thought it was. For some people it's very, very easy. For some people it's a practice art, but there definitely is something to it if you really, really, really want to be one of the greats. So let's jump into these 5 layers. What I want to do in this session too is I'm going to give you all 5 of them. And then we're going to take each layer by layer, by layer, by layer, by layer, and we're going to look at them and we're going to explore them. And we may not get to them all today, but that's okay, but I am going to give you this. I'm going to download and have a conversation with you today really about this, and we'll take as long as we need to because this is valuable content. I really want it to get into who you are. I don't want you just to hear it consciously. I wanted to get it into your subconscious as well because if you can grasp this, this will be probably, possibly a very, very, very valuable piece to add into the foundation of your desire to become a professional speaker. So Keith, what are the 5 layers of speaking? If you're taking notes, which by now I hope you are, if you're not, grab a quick pen, grab a piece of paper and write these down. The number 1 layer of speaking is content. Okay? Number 1 is content. Number 2 is style. Number 3 is energy. Number 4 is connection. And layer number 5 is momentum. So let me say those again. Layer 1 is content. Number 2 is style. Number 3 is energy. Number 4 is connection. Number 5 is momentum. So as I lay these out to you, what I want you to kind of picture is my earth science class always pops into my mind when I'm thinking about layers, you know, like the layers of the earth. And so I want to show you that because you right now are kind of a speaker, and there's a lot of speakers out there that picture yourself standing on the surface of the earth, right? And there's layers of the crust and I don't remember all of them. I wish I could be right. My wife, she would know because she taught school. The layers of the earth. But you're standing on top of the earth, right? And you've got a shovel. And the deeper you dig into the layers, the more effective of a communicator you are. So it's kind of like now, look at that earth science book in your mind. Now the earth is like sliced in half. So I can see you or you can see me standing on the top of this half of the earth, and you can see the layers, and I've got a shovel in my hand, but my shovel represents my ability to communicate. And the further I dig into these layers, the more effective a communicator I am. So I want you to kind of use these layers like that. They're not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like this. They go in depth. So as we go to level 1, level 2 reaches beneath level 1. Then we get to level 3, that's beneath level 2, and so on and so forth. So the further we go down, the more effective you are as a communicator. Does that make sense? And when you can use all 5 of these layers together as a communicator, whether you're just wanting to be a better communicator or you want to be a professional speaker and generate a revenue as a professional speaker, the more you use these layers, the more effective you will become. Now, I also want to put out a general piece of content here real quick before we get into the number 1, content. The first 3 levels, okay? 98, just so you understand where I'm coming from, 98% of the people on this planet who call themselves speakers only operate in the first 3 levels. Now, of course, that's my professional opinion, but based on what I've seen and what I watch, most speakers, 98%, the large majority of all speakers and communicators only operate in the first 3 levels. The bottom 2 are phenomenal layers to make sure you don't just have 3 layers of speaking, you have 5. That's why it's 5 layers of speaking, not 3. So the really great communicators, the really great speakers know how to operate in all 5. And so when I say good versus great, I'm not making speakers wrong or right. I'm just saying most good speakers are good with layers 1 through 3. So when you get into layer 4 and 5 and you learn how to use all these, you won't be just good, you'll be great. But the important to notice this is, like myself, when you have all 5 layers, you will begin to set yourself apart from all the other communicators that only use the first 3 levels, because your audience will notice, your clients will notice, your followers will notice, and the name and the brand of who you are and your effectiveness will open doors for you. When you're that good, you'll begin to leave the people that only use 1 through 3 in the dust, because you will be a 5-layer communicator and a 5-layer speaker. Does that make sense? So that's why I want you to see it. It goes down kind of like the earth foundation. So content. We're going to start with number 1. Content. So layer number 1, kind of the earth's top crust, is content. Now, content is what you say, okay? Content is what you say. And I'm going to kind of just give you a few little pieces here just so you can kind of see how they all go together, because I know you're probably excited to hear as much about all 5 of these as fast as you can, but I want to make sure I give you every piece of information you need about every layer as well. So content, for example, is what you say. That's level 1. Style is how you say it. Energy is engaging the emotions of your audience. Connection is engaging the heart of your audience. And momentum is the movement of your audience. Does that make sense? Did you catch all that? I'll say it one more time. Content is what you say. That's what we're going to talk a lot about today. Style is how you say it. Energy is engaging the emotions of your audience or your listener. And connection is engaging the heart. You see the difference? Energy, emotions versus heart. Connection is engaging the heart of your audience or your listener. And layer number 5, momentum, is the movement of your listener or of your audience. So that's how they all work, all right? So let's go back up to content. Content is where it absolutely starts. So I hope you know throughout this clinic, I am both trying to show you my level of communication and my abilities, but more important than not, this clinic is really me having a discussion with you. If you really want to see me quote unquote perform and not teach at the same time, then you can go to keithkochner.com and you can go to mentorfish.com and look around all the different videos in there, and you'll see me and hear me, or go to YouTube or whatever you want. You'll see me perform. So I want you to know that in this clinic, I am more entering into a dialogue with you and having a discussion with you than I am attempting to actually make a presentation. Now, hopefully I'm doing both of them pretty good at the same time, but I want to show you the difference, because I want to just kind of show you here with content. Content is probably one of the most important things of any speaker's career, obviously. If you're going to speak, it helps to have something good to speak about. And so I just wanted to kind of speak off the cuff here for a moment on what it is that you may be interested in speaking in. I would put some serious thought into it. Everybody wants to be a speaker, but it's kind of like meeting people and say, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a rock star, right? So everybody wants to be a rock star. So I get that, but then if I really was going to become a rock star, I'd really have to figure out, well, what instrument do I like playing? What kind of music do I like? What kind of lyrics would I want to use? And, what genre of music would I be in? And so content is kind of like, what kind of album would you like to make? If you were going to be a musician, people always go, well, if you love music, well, what kind of album would you make if you were going to make an album? Well, content's kind of that same conversation. As a speaker, you got to ask yourself, well, what kind of content would you like to create? And there's all different kinds of speakers here. So I know in this course, in this clinic, I'm actually communicating to all different types of people and all different types of content possibly that people may want to share. But really think about this, because if you don't have something good to say, you could be one of the best communicators on the planet and nobody's going to really care. So you got to make sure it's interesting, it's valuable, it's useful. Do you know what topic? So if you're going to write down 4 things here around content, we're going to talk about the topic, the format, the flow, and the circular pattern of your content, all right? So the topic is so very important. What do you want to speak on? Have you thought about that at all yet? Have you thought about the purpose of saying it? Like, for example, do you want to educate people? Are you looking just to inform people? Are you looking to create change in somebody's life? Are you looking to share your faith or something you believe in? Or are you looking to sell? Are you looking to market? What's the purpose of what it is the topic has been created for? Does that make sense? So it's kind of twofold here on what are you saying. You want to have a topic, and then you got to look at, why am I speaking about this topic? Because simply informing somebody or educating somebody or making a presentation, that's a lot different than presenting something that has an action step at the end, whether it be something you want them to do at the end of the presentation or potentially purchase at the end of the presentation. So it's important that you think, okay, what's my topic? And then what is the purpose of me communicating this topic? So what is it for you? What are you passionate about? Do you have a story? Maybe something that happened in your life that was very exciting and you want to share with people because you think it would be inspirational. Maybe you're more similar like me, maybe you've had some struggles in your life and you say, you know what, I overcame those struggles and I want to pass on the principles that I used to overcome those struggles, and you want to speak maybe about your struggles and how you overcame those and overcoming adversity. Maybe you've got something you're extremely passionate about, like a product or your faith or something of that nature that you just want to present to people and you want them to then use it when you're done. Your communication is all directioned to have somebody take action to come join you in doing something. So what is it for you? Maybe you're here to entertain. Maybe entertainment is some reason why you want to communicate. That's great. I've always toyed with the idea. I know it's a little funny, but if my wife was here, she'd kind of laugh because I've always wanted to be really funny. And so I've always kind of toyed with the idea of, stand-up comedy. And I will tell you this, when we get to style, I'm making a note right here so I don't forget. When we get to style, I'll show you how influential watching comedy became and how I adapted some of what I learned watching stand-up into my style. And I'll tell you exactly where that fit when we get to that session. But that all comes down to, what is your topic? And what is your content? You want to have something of value that you're excited about. Don't pick one here. And this is one of the biggest mistakes people do. People often say, what topic would be easiest for me to sell? Or maybe even, what topic would most people be interested in? And that's what you pick. You say, well, Keith, don't the people have to be interested in it? Don't they want? Well, yes. But what I'm telling you this is, if you want to be a great communicator, if you want to be in the 2%, not the 98%, you want to speak about something that you are absolutely passionate about, that is absolutely important to you, that you see the value in, that because you got to enjoy it just like any job. If you don't enjoy what you're doing, you won't want to do it for very long. You've got to love it. So don't just pick on what you think somebody else thinks you should speak on or what you think will be sellable, because here's what I'm going to suggest. Whatever your message is, whatever floats your boat the most, whatever you're most passionate about, I can promise you this, there's an audience somewhere for it if it's valuable content. So use something that's true to you and important to you, because if you're going to be speaking in this niche or this genre or on this topic, even though you may expand upon it, like I teach on leadership and professional development, well, that covers a whole lot of things. But I'm passionate about all of it, because what I'm most passionate about is educating everyone everywhere to live their greatest life. So anything that I talk about that will help somebody become great, even this clinic, excites me. And it gives, what I do is not work. You've probably figured out that by now about me. I love this. This is fun for me. This is my passion. I love serving people. So find the topic that represents that for you. And then as you become more and more familiar with it, we'll learn, and you'll learn as your career grows, how to expand upon that topic. So pick your topic. We're talking about content right now. We're talking about topic. Now under content, we want to talk about format, flow, and circular motion as well. So once you pick your topic and you've identified why you want to share what it is you want to share in your topic, you want to look at the format of your presentation. Now, I'm going to tell you this. You can do a lot of different things here in the format of how you present something or how you communicate something or how you speak something, all right? And I want to tell you ahead of time, there is no official wrong and right way to do this, but you do want to have a format, all right? You do want to pick on something because you want structure to your presentation, to your content. So let me give you, in my opinion, what are top two that I use. You always want an introduction. So introduction, if you're taking notes, you want to write down introduction. You always want an introduction, and guess what you probably want on the other end of it? A conclusion. Great. You think, Keith, this sounds a lot like my English class. Well, you know what? It's actually very similar to it. You know, when we had to learn how to write a small story in English, what was it? Introduction, 3 paragraphs, and a conclusion. You know, it didn't count if it didn't have 3 paragraphs. And man, that was the perfect formula to fill 2 complete pages. Remember those assignments where it could be 1 page and it couldn't be 3, it had to be 2. Well, that was a great format to do it. Introduction, 3 paragraphs, and a conclusion. So when you speak, you want the same type of format to that. Now, you can do one of 2 things. And again, you can add many different things to this as you grow and you understand the value of the format. But where I want to start you at is this. You have an introduction, and I'm going to suggest you pick what way you want to do this. Either pick one key theme for your talk. So it would be introduction, that one key point or theme, and then the conclusion. So it would be introduction, one key topic or theme, conclusion. And you give them one point that you talk about a lot, you talk stories about, but you want them to leave in their mind with this one thought, this one influencer, this one topic, whatever it is. You want just one thing to be in their mind when they leave, right? So that's one majorly popular way of communicating and speaking. Now, an option that I use, actually more than that, I do use that, but one thing that I do more than that is I do the rotation of I want 3 to 5 keys. So when they leave, they have this theme, but they have 3 to 5 keys to easily attach to the theme. Does that make sense? So then it's an introduction, and it's 3 to 5 key points, and then a conclusion. But obviously the whole thing is put under the umbrella of my topic or the theme of that particular training or that particular speech or keynote. So does that make sense? So kind of introductory, pick one main thing to work on, then conclusion, or pick an introductory and have 3 to 5 key points, and then you get to the conclusion, because when you're speaking, people like to know how many things they're going to hear. So I'm going to share with you 3 keys today on how to be X. I'm going to share with you 5 success principles that will help you X. Or today, I have this talk, and this talk is on this, and I'm going to show you why this is so important. Then I'm going to give evidence and stories and reiterate it and say it a few different times, but it's all the same thing. So that'd be the one thing. It'd be the introduction, back to the one, back to the conclusion. So you see the difference? So you can pick that. So what I really want you to know now is not that you've got to decide right now in today's moment as you're listening to this training that you've got to pick one theme or a theme with 3 to 5 keys. You can learn that. But the most important thing is I want you to think about format, because I can tell you this, you've probably experienced this somewhere already. Nothing's worse than being in the audience of somebody who rambles. Nothing's worse than being in the audience of somebody who rabbit trails so many different directions. You have no idea where they're going or when they're coming home and when you can leave. You know what I mean? For those of you that have any church background, you may have experienced a preacher do that at one time or another in your life. They just go on and on and on. It's funny, when I grew up in a faith background, and I would go to church, and we would have, and my dad was an usher, and I knew the sound guys, because we grew up in the same church for quite some time. And we'd have certain speakers that would come through our church, and they would be identified ahead of time that if they went too long, they would just mute the microphone and it'd be over, because they had a reputation of going way too long. So if you don't have a format, you'll go long. And here's the number one way to never get invited back to a keynote stage again. Go long. Go over your allotted time, or ramble, or a rabbit trail. Those things, I can promise you, will never get you invited back to that stage. You may want to make a little note for that. That's a little freebie. Number one way to not get invited back. All right? So you want to have a format. So this probably is registering with you all pretty well. But now I really want to talk about something here with around content that will really begin to get your attention. And this is something that's very, very valuable that some people and some speakers and communicators even miss just under content. I want to talk about flow for a moment, all right? Then I'm going to talk about the fourth piece of content here in a moment, circular motion, because these two is where I believe in my career and with my giftings, I begin to leave people in the dust. And that's what I want to help you begin to do as a communicator, as a speaker as well, all right? So I'm going to stand here for just a moment, and I'm going to show you a few things to help you really understand the flow, all right? Now, flow is extremely important. Let me say, Keith, flow. What do you mean by flow? Flow is the progression of your presentation, of your speech, of your communication. And it's how you progress, because there's a start and there's an end. Is you want to start one place and end somewhere different. And you want your audience to start with you in one place, and you want them to come along with you and end somewhere different. So there's a flow. And you kind of, in my opinion, now I could break this out and extrapolate it much further, but I think this is the meat of understanding flow. You kind of have three choices in flow. A certain kind of flow, which is what I would call just a linear flow, is like that. So you start here and you end here, and your flow's just pretty much horizontal. Does that make sense? So you're starting here and you move through, and it's kind of like you're moving along linearly, and then when it's over, it's over. Okay? That's an option of a flow. Now, there's another type of flow. There's a flow that does this. So you start here and you end here. So you can see it has a potential upward swing to it. It has an upward movement to it, but the movement is consistent and steady because you are wanting to move with them, all right? You want them to follow with you in the flow, and it's either going to go across like this or it's going to go up like this. And the content, because remember, this is how you're developing your content. This is how you're putting your content together through your topic, your format, and now your flow. And now the bottom one I'm going to give you, in my opinion, is probably, in my opinion, the most valuable and quote-unquote the best flow to have in a presentation. And it looks something like this. It's more like this. See the difference? Now, let's say the goal was to get your audience member to reach a certain height. Does that make sense? Like you want them to reach a certain height, like they're jumping up, or you're on a bicycle and your goal is to jump as high as you can, right? And so if you can use an analogy to look at your audience and use this content, say, what type of flow do you use? This is going to be the most effective flow if you are trying to persuade someone, if you're trying to put them to an action, a step of action at the end of your presentation. If you want to sell something to them, this is the one you want to use. If you're just presenting, you're just making a presentation and you're just educating and informing, and you have no real action or place you want the audience to go when you're finished, then this flow would be for you, the top one. If you've got a direction that you'd like this audience to move when you're done talking, again, whether it's an action statement, whether it's a challenge, whether it's a purchase, you're going to want to go into something that has more of an upward flow to it, because that's you moving them in the direction to do something, right? And then if you absolutely want to impact somebody's life and you want to be phenomenally connected to them and have a really high likelihood that they'll take action or make that purchase or move forward with whatever it is you're teaching them, then you definitely want to do this one, right? So let's use that analogy of a bike again. If you're on a bicycle and you're riding across, what's going to happen? You're going to go across, and then you're just going to go straight on, right? No, you're not going to have a new level of anything. Because I looked at it as increasing people's lives, helping them live at a different new level, stretching themselves, living their greatest life. This for me would be them just continuing on with the life they have right now, which wouldn't be the reason why I spend all the time communicating to them, right? So this one would be great because, if I did well, hopefully they would continue to use what I've shared with them and they would continue to move upward and, their life would begin to progressively get better. And so that's good. That's not bad. It's good. It's better than this because, see, this nothing changes, but at least something changes. But I'm going to tell you this. If you're on a bicycle and the goal is to jump that bicycle as high as you can, you're not going to jump anywhere here. You're going to jump off here, but you're going to not slowly, you're going to rather quickly drop right back off because it didn't have that much of a swoop to it. But if you've got this motion on a bicycle, this motion will actually boomerang you up higher, slingshot you up higher. That's why if you look at like BMX racing or skateboarding ramps, the ramps aren't built like this. They look like this. So when they get the speed and the momentum, it shoots them up even higher to do what they want to do. They have more time to do the trick in the air or flip the bike around because this deal shoots them up even higher. It has like a huge hook to it and it works like a slingshot. So if you found that analogy, if I'm speaking to people and I want them to reach their highest potential, I want them to step into their highest level of greatness, I want this to throw them up even higher into what's possible for their life. Does that make sense? So this, when you think about flow, think about this. Have you developed your content in such a way that moves them linearly, like horizontally? Or do you have an angle that will at least move them upwards? Or do you have something that will slingshot them up? So these are different types of flow. And if you're really wanting to become phenomenal, if you've got any action that's required or something you want them to do or something you want them to purchase or move in that direction of purchasing, you definitely want the bottom one. Does that make sense? So that's flow. So take that into your thought. As you think about content, we've talked about topic now. We've talked about the format, but now we've talked about the flow. So the final piece I want to put in layer 1, which is content, I want to put in circular motion. Now, circular motion is very, very important. Think about it this way. When you start something, you always want to bring people back around to the key point. Does that make sense? You always want to take them on a ride. It's kind of like, this is the opposite of a rabbit trail. A rabbit trail is just off in some direction and you have no idea when you're coming home. It'd be like a roller coaster that never came back to the loading dock. You don't want that. That's not what the audience wants. That's not what you want to do as a communicator. But as a communicator, you want to speak certain ideas, whether it's the intro, you want to have a circular motion to the intro that brings them back around right where you want them to then move into your presentation. Each key point of your presentation, you want to make a loop. You want to close these loops. That's how we think. We think, our minds, our human nature thinks in a circular motion. You don't want people in your audience thinking, well, what does this have to do with anything? You've thought about that before. I know you have. If you've listened to anybody communicate, whether it's one-on-one or you've sat in an audience, there's been times in your life where you thought, man, why is he telling me this right now? Why is she saying this right now? Or how does this play into the entire presentation? Or what does this have to do with anything? You ever thought that before? Those are people who aren't using circular motion. Now, this is something very specifically that I developed working with people to help people really understand this. You want to see it at many different levels. So I'm going to show you how it works on these, because you can have circular motion on all these different flows, but obviously, as you're probably already guessing, you're going to see the most effective is going to come down here. But let me show you how it works. So let's just use this flat line here, flow number 1, to show you how circular motion works. So if you have an intro at the beginning of this circular motion, this is what it would look like. This is the goal for you in your communication style, to have the intro, to bring them back around, that this is the intro, and it tees you up for the next point. This is what it would look like as you move along your flow. So when you have an intro, you want the intro. You don't want the intro just to go off here, leave them somewhere, go off here, leave them somewhere. You want them to bring it back to the flow line of where you want them to go during your presentation. Does that make sense? So you want to have a circular motion to your intro. So you tee them back up, you welcome, you do whatever you want to do. You're here to break the ice, you're here to connect. Then you bring them back around to the beginning point. You don't just do some random deal. It tees up. This should have a circular motion to help tee you up for your next point. So I don't remember how long my line will be, so it may not all be proportioned. But let's say you had you want to do your 3 key points. Well, each point should have a circular motion. Are you following this? Now, again, we haven't got through all 5 layers, and I know I'm getting pretty in depth here pretty quick on just even content. But when you begin to put these together, each individual layer, then all layers together, this is what's going to set you apart. So just take it and begin to think about it, then you get to the end, and guess what? You've got your conclusion at circles, right? So that's good. Even if this flow, because this is not a bad type of flow, it just matters what your goal is while you're speaking. So if you're just educating or informing, this would be a phenomenal presentation right now. But watch, Not only do you want your intro to have a circular motion to it, and your key points have a circular motion, they always wrap back around to the overall agenda. But watch this, if you want to wrap the whole thing together, the whole circular motion, you'll have this. If you do it really, really well, this is what you'll have in the end. Did you catch that? So see, you have a circle for your intro, you have a circle for your key points, you have a circle for your conclusion, but each of that content, that format, is layered in such a way that it's part of a bigger circular motion of the entire event, of the entire presentation. That's why it's so valuable to think like this. Now, if you have questions about this, this is where you get to interact with me. You can send me an email. My email is keith@mentorshipmastery.com. Most of you all have it. I've been emailing you. You can say, Keith, well, I'm doing this. How would that apply? But I want you to really get this at least in your mind. Now, of course, I can't teach you. Now, this course, this clinic, obviously, is going to accelerate you. Hopefully, you can do in 12 to 36 months, but what maybe took me 2 decades to learn. But at the same time, I can't teach you everything in one small clinic. This is the kind of stuff we begin to use and interact with our clients that want to go on to the next level. Once you get done with this clinic, you have an opportunity, if you choose to interact with some of our live trainings, whether one of our live events or live working with me, to really, for those of you that really want to take it to the next level, this is the kind of stuff I actually begin to really show you and work with you on at an individual basis if you really want to take on the next level beyond this speaking clinic. So you can see on these other lines, now you're going to start to see, man, oh, this is how it would be here, right? Yep. If you had these here, and again, I might be out of proportion on the size of my line, but you get the point. You have the things in the arrow here, and you've got your conclusion here, but then you've got your bigger circle that wraps the whole thing. Now, of course, when you learn how to do this really, really well, when you start to have circular motion on this flow pattern, especially again, if you're wanting to persuade somebody, if you're wanting to influence them, if you have a call to action, maybe a commitment or a challenge from them, or you have something you want to sell, this gets really exciting out here because you can really connect well with an audience and move people and be an effective communicator when you use this curve and you put your intro in a circular motion, you put your points in a circular motion, because see, all my little arrows when I close my circle are staying on my line of where I want this presentation to go right here. So see, it's all my circles closed back on the line of where I want them to go. So when you have this level of flow, and it's almost like a ball. If you were going to roll this ball up here and it all kept going, man, it's going to shoot this ball even higher. That's a great way to connect. That's an absolute phenomenal way to connect. So when you've got this curve to your flow and you're using circular motion and then you put on this, and again, this doesn't happen overnight. I've practiced, you'll have to practice, you'll have to role play, everything we shared earlier. But man, when you get this and this all circles together for even a bigger deal, you will be an extremely effective communicator. Your content will be laid out in such a way that even all by itself, now you say, Keith, this is phenomenal. I know it is. This is the great thing about leveraging somebody's experience. This is just content. We have 4 other layers to still get to. Now we'll get to these other layers, but I think today, when I look at my timepiece, I don't want to pass the point of diminishing return. So I want you to really get this. I want you to comprehend it. Like I said, you're not going to get it all in one night or all in one week or even one time. That's why I encourage you, listen to this clinic, listen to these sessions again and again and again, because you're going to get something more out of them every time you do. Now we're in the middle. I'm not saying that next week's style is going to take an entire week. We might get 2 or 3 of these in 1 week. I really want to make sure I showed you the value of content in and of itself. You want a great topic. You want a great format to the presentation. You want to be aware of your flow throughout your presentation, and you want your content, your knowledge, and how you speak, and the pieces of things that you put, the knowledge pieces that you put in and how you speak, you want them to have a circular motion, because you don't want to leave people hanging. You always want to close the loop. You always want to bring it back, and then you close the loop on the line of what you're doing based on what you're wanting to accomplish. You'll see the value in this. And man, when I'll tell you this, people will say, that content was phenomenal, because you know what? Everybody feels good when they understand what somebody said. Everybody feels good when all the loops are closed. And if you don't understand what I'm talking about, just think about a time when you left a speaker or a presentation or somebody communicated with you when you left where you didn't feel complete, like you felt like something was still missing, or like they started something but they never got back around to finishing it. I've had that happen. People, they start to tell a story, then they get sidetracked over here, they never get back to finishing the story. So the whole time they're saying something else, I'm thinking, they never finished the story, or they never wrapped the story because they forgot. That's a speaker, that's a communicator that doesn't know what I'm sharing with you today. They're just talking because they enjoy talking, and they somehow got onto a stage, and maybe they do good, and it's great. I'm not saying you didn't create anything from it, but they weren't as effective as they could be. Because I don't want your audience, I don't want my audience leaving thinking about, man, I wish he would have finished that story, or man, it felt like he forgot that point, or he said number 3 when it was really number 5 and he forgot number 4. I don't want any of that in their mind. What I want in their mind was the message that I wanted them to hear. Was the message I want to influence them with? Was the direction that I want to help them move? That's what I want people to leave with, and I know that's what you want too. So that's why I took extra time today to really dial in on content. Now next week, we'll continue session 2, the 5 layers of speaking. And next week, we'll get into style. We've got energy, number 3, connection, number 4, and momentum, number 5, as total 5 layers. So keep that analogy of the earth sliced in half. You're the speaker on top of the shovel, digging into the layers. Man, we just took a nice big chunk of a shovelful out of layer 1 into content. So play with that in your mind, think about it, process it, shoot me an email this week. I love to hear feedback. So give me feedback on the value you created from this session or questions that you may have. And I can't wait to come back and do another part of session 2 with you. We'll get into style next time we spend time together, all right? I will talk to you again soon. Have a great week. God bless you.